Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Comic Book Day Book Club. My name's Alec. This is White Whale Comics. You know John. If you don't, if this is your first episode, welcome.
Well done. Good
I
YouTubing.
don't know how you found me, but thanks for joining. That's John. He's the guy who's always here with me for some reason. These are our guests. That's Jeffrey down there. He's got a channel. And this is Chris. I Got Issues 2319 on Instagram, one of the best comic Instagram accounts you'll find around anywhere for your money, which is free, but still really great. And today we have gotten together, a quorum, if you will, to discuss for the second time in the short-term life of this show, a new Guardians of the Galaxy #1, which seems buck wild. Yeah, I'm of course the one who picked a different cover.
Yeah, considering we've only been doing this show for about a year or so, we've done a Guardians of the Galaxy comic book 3 times now.
Well, one of them was a #2.
Right. We've done a #1 and #2, and now we're having
two of them were a #2, if you ask me. How many times did I use that joke? So yeah, this one is by Al Ewing, who we all know from The Immortal Hulk, and it's drawn by someone who I wasn't familiar with, whose name is Juan Cabal. Do you guys know that guy?
No, not really familiar at all.
I felt like he drew Star-Lord's face kind of weird, but a lot of his panels were pretty neat.
I agree with that.
I felt like he drew a lot of stuff kind of weird.
Yeah, the faces were, and you know, I was reading this, and that was my first thought was, you know, this art is a little different. But I also was reading the previous Guardians of the Galaxy.
But this panel is pretty sweet.
And I went back and I was comparing them, and they actually are fairly similar. Because here's the other series that just ended, the Donny Cates one.
Make you big.
So the art wasn't as different as I thought it was in my head, but yeah, I think a little different.
Yeah, that page is cool.
That's my favorite one panel. But
that's probably the best spread.
But that like honestly was more like unique in a layout than it was. I was blown away by how well it was drawn.
Yeah, that's true.
But still, I mean, that counts for something.
And as far as the story, I thought it functioned well in the story.
Yeah, that was very movie-like. I want to shout out the chat. I Got Issues was first, and then It's Your Boy Comics told him to get out of here. So he said, okay, bye. But then guess what? There he is. Big O is in the chat. What's up? Kachoon followed us over from the greatest comic book show ever. Barrel on Comics said, look at this bunch of Hogans. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Comic Man Andy, how you doing, man? Barbarian Kung Fu. Delphia is in the chat. Kavi is selling on DS Comics' auction still, apparently, but also still here. I appreciate your support. TJ Watson says hi to you guys, but not to us because he sees us every week. So
what up, TJ?
That's fair. Sith AF. Sith as fuck. By the way, this is not for kids.
Kids, what are those?
Warlord is here. What's up? Welcome. Life with Two YouTubers, our guest from last week, joining us in the chat. Thank you very much.
That was a great show too. You guys should check it out if you haven't missed it. It was a good one.
Oh, it happens to be on your channel.
Strangers in Paradise was a good read. And I had a lot of people message me on Instagram after that show.
Oh, nice. No one messaged me. Glitter and Duct Tape is here. Jeffrey is also in the chat, holding it down. Tank Collects, welcome back to the fold, brother. Thunderhouse Designs is here, and I think that's everyone. Okay, so let's dig right into it. So the fact that we have a direct comparison from the last one we reviewed, at least John and I do. Did you guys? I know Jeffrey, you just said you did. Did Chris? Did you read that Donny Cates run at all?
Yeah, I did. I read the whole thing.
So comparing issue 1 to issue 1, what do you guys think? At least.
This felt very Ewing-ish. A lot of backstory.
Yeah.
I mean, not in a bad way, but I've been reading a lot of Al Ewing lately, and it's good. And There's always a point where before the story really gets deep into like the goodness, he goes back and he gives a lot of backstory and a lot of information on things like that. So this was a typical issue number 1 for me. I was kind of expecting something like this, and I think it met all my expectations.
John?
I found them to both be a little bit lacking. Like I don't know that I loved either one, and I stuck with the Kate's one a little longer than I probably should have. I just finished the first storyline. I didn't get into the whole death of Rocket Raccoon, or I should say, death of Rocket Raccoon. So I didn't do that storyline. So this one did hit me the same way. In both cases, I wasn't like ready to rush out and buy issue 2 or anything.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with John. I think that this one for me wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it was a bad book, but I think that it wasn't what I expected from Al Ewing. I think I had a little bit of like a higher expectation with his name being attached.
Yeah,
and I think the combination of having high expectations and then to me, I'm a big art guy, and I was disappointed in the art. I mean, I know that's the first thing we brought up, but I was disappointed in the artwork, and I don't know if like the story that he's building can survive lackluster artwork.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey brought up the fact there's a lot of backstory. I would say it was exposition heavy.
Yeah,
I felt like the way they delivered the backstory was just like characters telling other characters what's happening.
Yeah, no,
which
for
is
sure.
A huge, like, just snore fest for me.
So I'm gonna compare this to another book of Al Ewing's that I didn't think was exceptionally great, but it kind of similar to like the Immortal Hulk issue 25, where he went in with a lot depth with a lot of things. I guess I'm going off of faith that Al Ewing is going to. The issue number 2 is he's already created what he needs to, so issue number 2 is going to dive into what I would call like, the meat of the story. But I did enjoy it, and obviously we're just starting to talk, but the end is probably what I think my favorite part of it was. When you get to the end, there's a surprise. So
Alec was probably really pumped. There was no villain reveal at the end of the issue.
Might as well be. I mean, here's the thing for me. You say, he's probably got issue 2 planned and like this whole thing planned. But for me, besides the twist ending, am I going to want to pick up issue 2 after reading this? And I think that's a huge problem with a lot of comics these days, where they're just like going back to the fact that they've relaunched Guardians of the Galaxy again, because I assume readership must have been down for them to do that.
Well, and that's what I was trying to figure out while I was reading this, because they tied the last Guardians of the Galaxy series that just ended directly into this.
Right. So why is this links just the next issue?
That I was wondering that same thing. Is it just because Donny Cates is off of that one and they want to be a separate entity, but they could have just carried straight on with it.
Just said new creators, new arc or something.
I think that they're entering this territory now where every time a new creative team takes over, it's almost like starting a new volume. So they're starting a new volume and they're relaunching it with the number 1. So I don't think it makes a difference if the readership is up or not, because if readership is high or low, a number 1 is still going to retain people. Like if you were loving the book for 12 issues, you're probably going to pick it up when it relaunches, even if it has a new creative team. I mean, they just did the same thing with Thor, relaunching Thor after 14, 15 issues, because there's a new creative team. I think that's like the popular thing for Marvel to do now. So I'm not surprised by it. But I do appreciate the fact that they didn't start from scratch. Like it picks up where Donny Cates' story ended, with the same team members, with kind of the same backstory. So anyone who did commit their time and money to reading those 12 books doesn't feel like they got bamboozled.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the whole Rocket Raccoon, like him just recovering from that's direct tie into that last series. That's how that last series basically ended. So they do carry over things like that. And that's where they start doing that whole legacy thing, which is whatever. DC's doing the same thing, going back with the Wonder Woman 750. But I mean, I guess it's just.
Yeah, but how long until they decide that's not working and they relaunch a #1 again?
Yeah, next series that they do.
#1s just sell better. I get it from a marketing standpoint of saying like, oh, we can market a #1 easier than we can an issue 26 or whatever, you know. But there were certainly like moments of this book that I enjoyed, but there was just like.
The second, it's basically two stories in this book. I felt like.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say about it is
the second one is the one that I enjoyed the most, because the first one kind of just it starts off with some people that are just kind of discussing some things that are. It's basically I figured the first half is kind of like an intro
and there's like literally like a break in the middle of the story where they have the title.
Yep.
And you know, I feel like. To a point, I'm kind of running out of stuff to say on this show because I keep saying the same things about books. But like, the pacing was super weird, don't you? Like, I feel like this could have been 3 issues to tell the story, and it would have been way better.
Yeah, at least 2. You know, and I don't know. But with that being said, I felt like I got my money's worth out of it. Like in a sense of there was a lot there to take in.
But I mean, to me, so the ending reveal is not a villain reveal. It's the fact that they find. I guess we should talk about what the plot
jump
is.
to that.
Yeah,
we need to explain what that.
Okay, I won't jump to the end yet. But okay, so the plot is that the Guardians of the Galaxy are like on vacation and they're having Thanksgiving, and everyone doesn't like the skin of the turkey, which is very funny.
While they're barbecuing a little like dinosaur or something.
Yeah,
right?
that was like so it started. I was like, okay, this is kind of funny. It's got that like
humor
dialogue that you see in Guardians of the Galaxy, so it's good. And then, well, it actually starts with like this planet that gets attacked by Zeus, this reborn Zeus. And so Nova shows up, Dick Ryder, who they very carefully call Rich a few times.
Richard, yeah.
Shows up and says, hey, I need your help to do this. And they're like, no, we're out of the game. He's like, okay, if anyone's earned the right to stay, like you save the galaxy enough times, you can chill.
Yeah, we're not some suicide unit. Did you notice that? I thought they were taking a jab at the Suicide
Squad.
Yes.
And then so he, Star-Lord and Rocket sneak off in the middle of the night and say, well, we feel this need to still do something. So they leave by themselves to go help. And then they get there to where Nova is supposed to like have gotten this great team of heroes together to fight this new evil gods. And it's the 3 of them and
Marvel Boy,
who is like very millennial, like super millennial, like he talks about his pronouns and stuff.
Yes.
And then
he's the worst. He's the worst character ever.
And then who are the other 2? I forgot their names.
Moon Dragon
and
Philavale.
Yeah, thank you. So it's just them. So they're like the new Guardians, I guess. Or I guess you see them all in the cover.
That's like that's my least favorite panel in like probably the whole issue.
Well, the writing is right there with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just
if it hadn't just come from a huge thing of exposition, I would have been like, okay, that's a funny character bit. But instead, it just felt like them being like, oh, you don't know who Marvel Boy is because he hasn't been around in a minute. So let me take this opportunity to explain what he does. So it felt very forced and weird because he just like talks about all his powers.
Yeah.
Where it's supposed to be him being just cocky, but because we just had 3 pages of people talking about where they've been and like catching you up to all their stories, talking to each other about stuff they already know, then it just felt like more of the same. So that was weird. So they come up with this plan to go attack this like floating Olympus that these gods have, run by Space Zeus, in which they can create this, like Marvel Boy can create this bubble of his own physics, and he's going to go in and they're going to blow up their planet, whatever.
Yeah.
So Nova and Moondragon, or whatever her name is, fight 3 of them in space while the other ones go in and distract them mentally, like telepathically, to sneak in. And then 2 more gods who are still on the planet explain to each other who they are, even though they're siblings.
Yeah.
And then one of them can smell the fact that they're there, because the telepathy just says, you can't see anything, you can't hear anything. So they smell them and they find them, and then they wreck the whole plans. Right? Does that pretty much sum it up?
Yeah, but the plan was they were looking for the major power sources. Because they figured that if they took out the power sources, it would keep the planet from like being able to jump in and out of time or space or whatever it was. So they'd split up in 2 groups, and they were going. And that's basically where it ended. Is one of them? I'm assuming that was one of the power sources, right? That they find.
I would guess so. Yeah. So and then Marvel Boy kills Hermes, or seems to have killed Hermes, by shooting him in the head after a very funny line of "No gods, no masters," which is another very millennial thing to say. And I understand that he can create like this pocket physics universe, but if he has the time to say 3 lines in front of the god of mega speed, you think he could just run away.
Yeah. Anyway, that's him being cocky again, right?
Yeah. So anyway, Nova gets stabbed, and the rest of them get back to the ship, and they find Hercules, who's like, oh, I can help.
He's got some sweet pants on too. I don't even know what those things are.
So
he's like being held captive, right?
Yeah.
And they're using him as the power source. That's
the classic Marvel, handcuffs of like big hand and feet manacles that they've been using since the 80s. So yeah, it's not a villain reveal, but it is like a last panel full splash. Here's a character. It's your boy says, whoa, spoilers. Yeah, sorry. Full spoilers show. My point that I was going to say earlier, when I was going to spoil it way before, was that you don't need that kind of reveal to be a cliffhanger. They could have, like Jeffrey and I were just saying, you could have split this into 2 issues, and it ended with them on like the edge of the planet ready to attack, because that's still a cliffhanger, because you don't know what's going to happen with their attack. And it's like, next time on, you're going to see the full attack that they just set up for a full issue.
Yeah,
am I crazy in thinking that like there are other ways to do a cliffhanger other than a big reveal?
No. Like, I mean, even if you had to do another, like, I don't know, it's just getting too like cliche. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Where like every time
every single number
you
one
read a book, yeah. I don't know. At least, yeah. I don't know. Is it better that it's not like a new character than it is like to be someone like Hercules? Because imagine if it was a number 1 and it was a new character, like then it just feels like they're shoving it down your throat, trying to get you to, like, oh, a number 1 with a new character, like.
I guess it's better, but that's saying that like chlamydia is better than gonorrhea,
Yeah, that's true. Very.
John didn't like that.
You don't want either.
But it is.
But you still don't want either one.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
but if you had to get one,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know my STDs enough to say that it's necessarily better or worse.
Oh man.
But yeah, so like, if then you would have had all these extra pages to avoid the exposition, because you could have had conversations that were natural, that could have still had the same information come out. I don't know, but like, people have such short attention span thanks to MTV. We can't like spread out a story and have it be paced in a way that's logical and normal.
That, or honestly, I felt like they probably could have cut out half the dialogue in this book and just broke this issue down in half and had it. I feel, I mean, a lot of it was. It's nice that you're trying to give us a backstory, because if you are new, maybe you haven't read any Guardians of the Galaxy, you kind of understand where the story's at. But I feel like they didn't need it. You could have almost just started from the second half of this book and just had that as issue number one.
You also didn't even need all the exposition dialogue. Like, no, you could have, like, when it started, I'd only read the first 2 issues of the last Guardians run, and when it started, I was like, okay, I understand what's going on, because they're setting up, like, it didn't matter if I had no backstory of these characters. They're a bunch of people who are enjoying a meal. They have relationships. They're like, we're not a team, we're family. It's like very Fast and the Furious.
Fast and Furious.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it was like, I got the setup. I was like, okay, this is great. They're not using exposition. And then what do you know? The next 12 pages are nothing but exposition. Like, I didn't understand why he chose to do that.
I think it's just the way that the story was designed, that there's so much explaining to do, that I felt like he couldn't do it through like normal dialogue, because you're building. Al Ewing has this thing that he did with Immortal Hulk, where he's building on all these old back issues of Hulk that are stories that you only understand if you've read these back issues. And it had people who were fans of Immortal Hulk chasing down back issues. I feel like he's kind of setting the stage for the same thing with this series, because most people aren't really familiar with the Olympian gods. Most people aren't familiar with Hercules. And there's even the part where he has Peter Quill talking to the Master of the Sun when he's laying in bed in the beginning of the issue. You're not going to understand that reference at all unless you're like a Star-Lord fan. Like, no one else in the world knows who that is unless you're like a hardcore Star-Lord fanboy.
Yeah.
And I do think so. This might go to my issue with Guardians of the Galaxy in the comic form, anyways, which is that, like, I've yet, and people keep giving me like suggestions, and I do need to read a few other ones, but I feel like every time I've tried to sit and read a Guardians comic, the first few issues are so packed with information, because they're like, hey, we're putting a new team together, so we got to explain who all these people are and give you all their backstories and start them on a journey and do this whole thing, and it's like, it's just a mess. It feels like it's always such a weighty mess. I've never read a Guardians. Again, I'm still looking for good ideas. If you have one, send me one. But like a good Guardians run, like they're always such
that Abnett and Lanning run. The Abnett and Lanning run is like the Guardians of the Galaxy run. It's like a 25 issue run, and that's like the run to read if you want like a good Guardians book that is not a complete dumpster fire.
Yeah, there it is. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of, why can't you just like say they just start at a point, and as the series goes on, you bring up scenarios where you learn about that character. Yeah. Like, instead of trying to shove it all down your throat at the beginning, like the X-Men didn't, when they first started, they didn't go into, oh, this is so-and-so, here's all about them. No, they just, here's the X-Men. And as the series progressed, you learn about that character. So if you plan on making a good series, then being around for a while, you shouldn't need all this backstory dialogue, because as the series gets larger, then you're going to learn more.
Or you can, I mean, I know this is also super cliche, but it's cliche and people use it for a reason because it works. It's like the Power Rangers thing, where you start a season of Power Rangers with the new team, and you show each character in like a little pocket of their world, and they just show you what they're like as a person, as a character, instead of telling you what they're like as a person or a character. I know, I just made that up. Show instead of tell.
Yes, I agree.
I know. I didn't make that up.
I also like your boy's comment when he's saying that in the old days of saying like, see previous issue, see Guardians number 37.
Well, they still did that in this too.
They said, see, that was that something that new
Absolute
Scourge or
thing,
that Scourge or whatever. Yeah.
Annihilation, yeah.
Annihilation of Scourge, yeah.
So like if you really
but that was for the
that,
most. That was for the most irrelevant part of the issue, though. That's
it was. And that's a book. That's a book that just came out like 2 weeks ago. So
because they want to sell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's absolutely buck wild the decisions that were made in this. Like Al Ewing, I think, is a better writer than this book.
Very much so. I that's why I say I have faith that issue 2 should be. But I think he's got all the stuff he had to get out of the way. Hopefully in this issue. I don't know. I'm gonna get issue number 2. I enjoyed it enough, and I don't think it was super bad or nothing. But I'm gonna pick up issue 2 and see how it goes. I'm
finally at a point where I am done blaming writers, though, because clearly this is a Marvel problem. Like I said, Al Ewing is a better writer than this. I think Donny Cates is a better writer than all the crap I've given him for the stuff he's done that's very similar. But the fact that literally every Marvel #1 is this book. Like it is like
that comes from the top.
Right. So they're giving them this outline that says, okay, here's how you need to write this. Now fill in the details. There's no other explanation.
It feels, I don't know, this could just be me because I don't really know exactly what I'm talking about, but it feels very cinematic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you watch these movies and they always start off with like a little bit of an origin. That's what I feel like they're doing with all these new comic books. Like they're setting up these backstories, and it feels very easy for maybe like
so take a couple issues to set up the backstory. But then they're worried that people aren't going to buy it because it doesn't have a big twist ending or doesn't have a first appearance.
And if you're only doing a dozen issues on a story arc, like, what are you going to spend the first 2 setting up stuff? Then you only got to, I don't know, like, who knows what's going on?
To make something that's good?
Yeah, right? Exactly. Like, that should be your first thought, right? Let's make something good. Not, okay,
because something good is going to sell. Like, Immortal Hulk sells because it's good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even sell the way that it used to sell. You're talking about a company, it has to make. Listen, I understand as a fan, we get upset, but companies make fiscal decisions. They don't make emotional decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the day, they're more concerned with money and dollar signs. So, the drop off from issue number 1 sales to issue number 2 sales is enormous.
Dramatic.
Yeah. It's already like an astounding percentage. So if you don't have an issue number 1 that grabs you, imagine how much more that could increase. So I kind of understand why they feel they need to have these big cliffhangers and reveals, because they're trying to mitigate like that huge decay in sales between issue 1 and 2, and then 2 and 3. And that's why you run into books that get canceled even when they're good, because sales drop off.
And let's be honest, even Immortal Hulk, which which was great. Immortal Hulk didn't even have high sales until like issue 16.
Right. And
it was over a year when they started. So the circulation for between issues 15 and 2 was like 40,000.
But where does like Image make all their money? They make it in trades.
Yeah, yes.
And the best-selling trade of the last few months, as far as I know, is Batman White Knight, because it's a good story that people want to read. So if you write a good, maybe you're going to sell a lot of issue number 1, and maybe you're going to sell more of issue 2 if there's a big twist ending. But if the 12 issues turns out to be a dumpster fire and no one cares about it after the fact, are people going to buy the trade and make that money on that second rung of the market? I don't know. I just think like it's there's a disconnect somewhere, and I totally agree, because I keep making the argument that paper comics are probably going to die at some point in our lifetimes because it's so much more cost effective for them to go fully digital. And that's a very non-emotional, very business decision for them to make, to say like, well, let's just save money and cut our bottom line. But like, you have to look at the bigger picture sometimes.
Right, because if you go on like Comixology or Marvel Unlimited and you want to buy a brand new comic book, they charge you the same exact price for the digital copy that you go to the store and pay for a physical copy. You're paying $4.99 for one of these new books for a digital copy of that book.
And their overhead is pennies on the dollar compared to it.
Right. There's no shipping, there's no printing, there's no dealing with stores, there's no inventory issues. And it doesn't take away from them in terms of like the secondary market. That like what we hate most about comics right now is the secondary market, and it eliminates the secondary market because there's no more physical copies of a comic book.
Yeah, but Marvel doesn't care about the secondary market. They're not making any money off that.
They care about it because it takes money away from them. If you can buy a book on the secondary market, you don't have to go to the source. If you can find a back issue for $1 on eBay, you don't have to pay Marvel $3 for it. If you own the digital copy and you clamp down on, there's always going to be piracy. But if you can clamp down on piracy and you get people to only buy digital, then you have no other choice. You're going to continue to make more money because you're gonna corner the market.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you talk about the Marvel Unlimited app or whatever it's called, and if you go and look at any #1 issue for any big title in the last 12 months, you're going to be reading this book with different characters in it. Practically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but like
it's like Marvel gives their writers, they're like, okay, it's like they give them I don't know, like a binder or something. It's like the official Marvel issue #1 outline or something.
Yeah.
Outline, exactly. And it's like, okay, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have, okay, now all you got to do is follow this. But, here you are, the writer.
You're being awfully quiet over there, John.
That's what it kind of feels like, at least.
I can ruminate sometime. I don't need to run the...
Fumigate?
No, I feel like there's bigger issues for me than first secondary market versus where the books first come on the rack. I feel like the bigger issue for me is just originality, and I get like Jeffrey is saying when they have the checklist or the playbook or the typical, it ruins the interest and the excitement of the story. And then what you end up with is the Silver Surfer Blacks are like the rarities, and it makes fans from the people that like me were like, wow, this is really something different and original and I'm enjoying it. But it also angers a lot of people who are like, no, I want the playbook. I'm enjoying the playbook.
Yeah, but you have plenty of chances to read the playbook. But like it also says something that it takes someone like a Donny Cates, who's like their golden boy right now, to be able to say, hey, I want to write something different, and have them let him.
Yeah,
but he's had that opportunity and he hasn't done it. To me, he's been a letdown on everything he's touched since Venom.
Yeah.
Other than Silver Surfer.
But Silver Surfer is the one thing that's like an outlier, where I'm saying like any other writer, they would have shot that idea down. But Donny Cates sells books, so they say, okay, you can go ahead and try this. I'm not defending Donny Cates, I'm criticizing Marvel.
I mean, you would think after the success of Immortal Hulk that them putting Al Ewing on this book would be their way of saying, okay, we're going to let you do what you want and go ahead and duplicate your success that you had with Hulk on this new title, which is once again why I said that this book was a letdown. I think if someone else wrote this book, like a nobody or a no-name person wrote this book, I might have enjoyed it better because I would have had lower expectations.
Absolutely. Expectations are a huge part of it.
Yeah, and so knowing who Al Ewing is and knowing his body of work and knowing what he's doing right now, it's disappointing to pick this up and read it and just, like you said, feel like there's so much that was done in this issue that didn't make any sense. And he's capable of writing better. So, like, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it?
Is it Marvel, or is it Al Ewing's, or is it ours for continuing to buy it?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I'm not sure if it's anybody's fault, like, because we're all different. I honestly kind of was coming into this issue expecting something like this, like backstory on a bunch of characters and kind of introducing a new story arc. But I don't know.
I mean, there was no. This issue wasn't boring, but at the same time, if I hadn't been reading it for this show, I wouldn't have finished the issue.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not something I'm gonna go rushing out, put it on my pull list, and like I said, I'll probably pick up issue number 2 and check it out. And part of this, like, honestly, is because I've really tried to cut down on my pull list, but I had the other Guardians of the Galaxy on that just ended, so if I got one that just ended, I got room for one more to put back on. So this might be it, depending upon what I think of issue 2 after it comes out. But so it's kind of where we're at right now.
It's Your Boys Comic says Issues is sounding like he's ready to speak to the manager of Marvel.
Somebody should.
I will also say, like, if it weren't for this show, I would have picked this up off the shelf and flipped through it. And like
Put it down.
this is saying, I probably would have looked at the artwork and been like, "What the heck is going on with Nova and Star-Lord? They look really weird in this. I think I'm good."
And we also, for a brief, foolish moment, considered doing Wonder Woman 750 this week. And flipping through that, boy, am I glad we did not do that, because that looked dreadful. Oh, you picked it up? Was it bad?
I haven't read it. I don't know if I'm going to. Wonder Woman is on my pull list, and I didn't know if he was going to put this on there. And if he didn't put this in my pull list for me, I wasn't even going to pick it up. I was like $9.99, but then he was like, he already had it set aside for me, so I was like, okay.
Feel obligated to make it.
Yeah, kind of, but sorry.
What are you going to say, Chris?
No, I didn't even pick it up. $10, you're not going to get me.
No.
Right.
Like, some of the covers were real nice, but for $10, even with a discount.
But that's like it's like Action Comics 1000 and Detective 1000. Those books will be $2 or $3 in 6 months. So
yeah, so many copies were printed.
It's just another way for them to do that. It's like, oh, 750. We can go back to legacy numbering and fucking make a big double-sized book.
And they're going to do it with Batman pretty soon, because it's getting close to 900. So that's going to happen.
Flash 750 is coming out soon too.
No, we're not going to wait for 1,000 for Batman. You kidding me?
Right? Like, I mean, if they're not doing it for Wonder Woman, like, I don't know.
Because they went back to Legacy on Detective at what, 800?
Yeah, somewhere right around there. I started on Detective at like issue 880, and that's where I'm still on. I enjoy it. It's okay. It's cool.
Yeah, I bought. Kachun says how many was bought Detective for $10. I did, like a fool.
Did. I just got one because I mean it was on my pull. It's just like Wonder Woman. It's on my pull list. It comes on my pull, so I get it. But I got I think Jim Lee did the original, just the A cover, right? Because that's the one that I got, I think.
Oh, Detective, yeah. I don't know.
Well, with all that being said, I'm still gonna pick up issue number 2 of this book. So,
yeah.
I mean, I get it because like you trust the writer.
I do, and that's a lot of it too.
Like the setup is interesting that it could be good, but this issue is just a bummer.
Yeah. I agree. It was not great. But like you said, it wasn't horrible either.
I felt the same way when we read Zdarsky's Daredevil issue number 1, and I was kind of thinking, I don't want to read this anymore. And then people told me it was getting so much better, and I went back and caught up. And I was glad that this was my first experience reading Chip Zdarsky, so I was kind of like, I don't know if I trust this guy.
But I think Zdarsky's Daredevil number 1 was better than this Guardians number 1.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Daredevil is one of the best books out right now in Marvel.
Yeah, I called it my my ongoing of the year in our year-end review.
There you go.
But I mean, there's not a whole lot to choose from because everything else resets every 12 months.
Also true.
I think, or they just have multiple series. This is what the at least second series in the last 6 months for the Guardians. So
yeah, it's they need to slow their rolls.
Like Thor, how many Thors? There's King Thor, there's something Thor, there's like 3 Thor series that came out in the last couple of months, right? And the new one that just came out, I think, makes 3.
You're having Deja Thoris?
Gross. Nemo says my LCS has all the covers for like $20 talking about Detective 1000, which like, yeah, that I don't doubt it, but that's like such an irresponsible move because go on eBay right now, you get a whole set of them for like $10 probably. But
and Marvel
like,
Comics 1000.
I'm
Remember when
fine.
they did that?
Yeah, I'm fine with the quote LCS tax of saying like you're going to pay maybe a little bit more than you would on eBay, but there's a point where it's just like you're just being mean to your customers. But it's got a first appearance in it, so
First appearance.
Detective 1000.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right? Character you probably never see again. Anyways.
Who cares?
Yeah.
But hey, got a spec on it.
Yeah, there's so many new. It's like every issue of a comic book almost has a new character in it these days. So like, they're gonna have so many characters, and half of them will never ever be used or seen again. So,
yeah, I mean, you even go back to like the '90s. It was flip through any '90s books, see how many first appearances on those, and how many of those people lasted. Think about it like
characters. New characters in every issue is not like it's not a new gimmick. That's been around forever. It's just we notice it more now because the speculation sites and the apps are throwing it at your face. If you weren't reading those books back then, you wouldn't know about it because nobody that you didn't have the IG community, you didn't have YouTube community. So when you went to the store, the guy at the LCS wasn't like, "Oh, you should pick up Wonder Woman because there's a new bad guy named Whizzer in it." Like that wasn't going to happen. But now you have these apps where you wake up in the morning and an app or someone on IG tells you should pick up Batgirl today because it has first appearance of this nobody who's going to be nothing, and then you go and buy
villain,
it.
Though.
Yeah, no, same thing with the Incredible Hulk. Like I'm watching on Key Collector app, and they're starting to go through Incredible Hulk a lot, like the first appearance of Trauma, and then there was one. It was the first appearance of I can't remember her name as the female MODOK. It's her first and her only appearance. Like I mean, these storylines that are probably never be used, in my opinion. And it's like it's cool, I guess, but.
And Wednesday spec is like the least return on investment you can possibly do, because 9 out of those 10 books you spec on are never going to be worth more than $5. So you buying them. If you're buying them anyway, great. If you're not, if you're going to buy a bunch of books to spec on, because maybe you'd hit one that's worth $30 someday, who cares?
Especially if you just spent like $100 to try to get that one that was $30.
Exactly.
I like Kachung's comment about the Tedesco cover of She-Hulk from Marvel 1000.
Yeah, man, I bought the hell out of that cover. I don't care.
I got the Storm. That was my favorite.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, I wasn't even gonna buy that comic book. I didn't know there was a Storm cover. I walked into my LCS and they had it up on the shelf. I was like, "Oh, you guys."
Sometimes I get suckered in by a pretty cover, and
I mean, right? Like you can't deny that. Like it happens to me too.
Speaking of Tedesco, he's going to be at MegaCon, and I need to figure out how to get into contact with him so I can try to pay too much for a sketch from him.
It's okay.
So if anyone knows how to reach out to Julian Totino Tedesco, hit me up on IG. Because I don't know how to talk.
You got to find out if he works. You got to find out if he works with one of those companies.
Yeah.
Like what company manages him, and then contact that company.
Yeah, I've never done any of that before, so.
Check with Bear. I mean, he's done a bunch of that kind of stuff.
I was going to say maybe Comic Books NYC. I know he's in contact with some of them.
And Middleton's going to be there too. So get your Batgirl 23s ready.
I think I have them all but that one. I started at 24.
Oh, bummer. I mean, that's all I got for this issue. I feel like I'm just talking in circles a little bit at this point, but unless you guys have any closing words.
No, I mean, just I don't think it was total garbage. I think there were some good points in it. Some
I mean, it was no Captain Marvel #1.
Yeah. I guess that's for its sake, that's probably a good thing. But yeah, I'm gonna give it another shot, like I say. But I enjoyed the process of running out to the LCS and picking it up to get on the show and talk to you guys about it. So for me, that was worth the money right there.
I heard Jabroni refer to that as a content buy.
Yes, man. Oh gosh, content buys. Sometimes those are. Oh yes,
that's a legitimate part of our lives now. Is
it is
for content.
It is. That's why you don't see me putting any out.
I heard Jason talking about Under the Red Hood, and I was like, I'd never read that, so I snagged that trade today.
Yeah.
Anyone want to plug anything before we talk about what we're doing next week?
Jeffrey
I got nothing.
You on the hunt Friday, Jeffrey?
I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Okay. I'm not competing. I might show up and hang out with the guys and stuff like that. But you just brought up content buys. Like it just like that's part of the reason why I haven't put out so many videos or anything lately. It gets to a point when I was having to do too many content buys, and I just couldn't afford that kind of thing anymore.
Sure.
Yeah, I hear. Cool, John. What do you got coming up?
This is going to be an exciting weekend for the John's Comics channel. I keep teasing my Instagram with my story with just silly little something's coming, secrets dropping, stuff's happening. So be ready. Friday, I am legitimately having on Friday night the end of my Lost shows is happening Friday. Everybody's coming back for a little finale show. We're going to talk about what makes a good TV show finale, how we felt about the Lost finale. It's going to Bueller's going to hopefully make it. I don't think Fire Guy Ryan can make it, but we're going to get a whole bunch of the gang back together again to talk about the final run of that show.
Well, talk about the Battlestar for me.
And so there'll be some exciting announcements there. And then I will be popping up all across YouTube over the weekend. I got a whole bunch of stuff happening this weekend. I'm thinking like 5-6 shows from my channel alone this weekend. So just explosion on the YouTube.
Very cool.
Be ready.
And what are we doing next week on your channel?
Next week, we are on my channel. We're doing another of what has been a largely successful plan for this show, Image #1s. And we got another one rolling in here, Protector, issue #1 is going to be our book club book next week. And we're going to have Metaphorical joining us.
Yeah, very excited.
Boom.
Both to be talking about an Image book and have Metaphorical on.
Yeah.
So that's about it. Thanks to Chris and Jeffrey for hanging out.
Hey, thanks for letting me come on.
For stopping by and sharing their thoughts, even though we didn't get to you guys very much. We were too busy just ranting and raving. But, sometimes it happens. But I appreciate each one of you anyway for hanging out and watching us and hanging out and sharing your opinions. And until next time, I guess never turn your back to the ocean, right?